Hi, welcome to this Excel tutorial video, and today we're going to look at pivot tables. We're going to look at how we create pivot tables, the options we've got when they've been created, how we can amend pivot tables, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of different types of pivot tables and the data within them. So, what are pivot tables? Pivot tables are a very helpful tool in Excel that allows you to summarize and analyze large sets of data. So it allows you to take a large set of data and just take a couple of the pieces within that set of data and return them separately, individually for analysis. And I'm going to show you some examples of that now. So on screen, I've got a set of data. Fair enough, it's not a big set of data, but it's big enough. It shows me a list of customers. It shows me invoices that I've sent them, the dates, the values. You can see the data. What I want to know is I want a list of all of my customers and the total amount of invoices that I've sent them. And the best way to do this is to use a pivot table. So to create a pivot table, the best thing to do is to make sure that your cursor or your selected cell is within the set of data that you want to analyze and summarize. If it isn't, then Excel, you've got an extra step that you need to go through. So if you've got your set of data selected in this way, you've got a cell selected, click on Insert and Pivot Table. Excel will presume to know the data range. In this case, it's A2 to F56, and it's correct. That's the data I want to analyze. If you don't have a cell selected and you've got this blank cell selected here, then it doesn't know what data range you want, and you need to then go away and select that data range, which is fine. You can do that, and I've just selected it quite easily, but easier if you have a cell selected within your data range before you click pivot table. Something else to note, I have a row 1 here with invoice data and values, and then I've got row 2 that has my actual column headers, my data headers here. When I choose Insert Pivot Table, Excel says, right, you want to go from A2 to F56. And the reason it says that is because each column, each set of data has got to have a header. So if it looked at A1 as a starting point, each of these columns of data does not have a header in row 1. So it presumes, and quite correctly, that my data starts at A2. So if I just do that again, A2 to F56, that's correct, that's what I want. The next option I've got is, where do you want to put the data? Do you want to put it in a new worksheet, or do you want to put it in an existing worksheet? If you've got a massive set of data that kind of goes off screen, it's very wide, and maybe you want a new worksheet, a blank worksheet to do your analysis from. In this example, my data is quite narrow. I'm going to use the existing worksheet, the current worksheet. So I want to select existing worksheet. Then it says to me, where do you want to put your pivot table? And I'm going to click on this little arrow, select cell H3, click on the arrow again, and click OK. When I've clicked OK, it has done a couple of things. So first of all, it's brought up this pivot table tile here. It's brought up this pivot table field set of options on the right-hand side, and it has given you access to 2 new toolbars at the top. And we're going to look at information in these toolbars in a little bit. What we need to do now is we need to start adding data to our pivot table. So what I want to do is I want all my customers, and I want the total value of the invoices that I've sent them. So got these fields here, the headers that belong at the top of each of my set of data. So I'm going to click on customer because that's what I want to see. And because it's an alphanumeric column, it thinks, okay, customer is going to be the field that you want to get your summary data from. So, which is true. So I want my customers to be my focus, and then I'm going to summarize based on customers. So Excel at this point is correcting kind of what it's doing. The next thing I want to do is I want to select the amount field, because this is the field that I want to summarize per customer. So if I click, put a little tick next to amount, it then says, I'm going to give you the sum of the amounts column rolled up for each customer. And that's what I want as well, so that's perfect. Just to kind of show you on the right hand side what it's done. When I've ticked customer, it's put customer in the rows section here, which is in this case the H column. And then it's put the amount in this values section, which is where it does kind of its aggregate work, if you like. In this case, it's summarizing. Or totaling rather. Now it might be that I don't actually want a sum total of my amounts, and maybe I want to see the largest invoice value for each customer. We can do that. So if I click on this little downward arrow here, and I click on value field settings, we now have access to change the way this data's output. So right now we are choosing this sum total option, but we can say max, meaning get all of the invoices for that customer, but return the value of the biggest invoice. So if I click on that, what we've now got is for ABC Limited, according to this, the largest invoice that we sent them was worth £1,654. And if we go down here, there we can see next to ABC Limited, £1,654. So that's correct. Let's go back up. Actually, me doing that has brought another point here. So if you're working with pivot tables, as long as you've got an element within your pivot table selected, you will see this right hand side pivot table fields, and you will see the two toolbars that we looked at before. If you select away, all of that disappears, because it's no longer the focus of what you're doing. You know, you might be doing something within here, within the data. You don't need to see all that pivot table set of options. As soon as you go back to your pivot table, then these things appear. So if ever you're working with pivot tables and everything disappears, it's generally because you've clicked away from your pivot table. So I'm going to click back into it. I don't want to see the maximum. I want to see the sum total of the invoices. So I'm going to go back to this little drop down, go to field settings, choose sum, click OK. Now what I want to see is I want to see how many invoices I've sent them. So what I can do, I've got this invoice column here. I can maybe do a count of the invoices that I've sent each customer. So I'm going to just put a tick in that invoice column. Because the invoice column is alphanumeric, Excel presumes that you want to do your analysis from that field. It doesn't think that you want to do some sort of aggregation or any sort of summarizing of this field, because it's alphanumeric, so you can't get a sum total of anything from it. But in this case, Excel is incorrect. I want to get the count of each customer's invoices. So by ticking this box, Excel's put it in the wrong place. And we've got a couple of options here. I can't drag it from this rows to this values column, and that's what I want. And it's actually done what I want here. Or if I untick it, I can just drag it from here down to here as well. So Excel says, right, that's an alphanumeric column. So I'm presuming, instead of getting you the sum total, I'm presuming you want to do a count. And I do. I've got 15 invoices sent to ABC Limited with a total value of 5,119. This is quite helpful data, so it's looking good so far. Now let us say I want to see how much is outstanding per customer. And if I just click next to outstanding, nice and easily, it'll say, oh, outstanding. Excel thinks it's a numeric field, so I'm presuming you want to get a sum total of the outstanding field, and I do. There's the data, nice and simple. So now I've got the 3 columns of data I'm looking for, and without really a lot of work. Now I've got this data, I kind of need to maybe highlight this, and I can format the numbers. as you would do generally. So 2 decimal places, yes, I'll do that little separator. And then everything looks a little bit neater. Now let's think about adding a filter. So maybe I don't want to see all of my invoices. I just want to see some invoices. So I've got this paid option here. And if I tick that, because it's an alphanumeric field, Excel presumes I want it in this left-hand column, and I don't. So I'm going to untick it, and I'm going to drag it into my filters here. Now I've got this option here at the top, and it's my filter, and I can click on the little drop down, and I can say paid yes, click OK. And it changes all of the data. So now it says, all right, I'm looking at only the paid invoices. The amount of paid invoices is that. The amount of invoices that I've sent them that have been paid is that. And the amount outstanding obviously is going to be 0. But I can click on that and I can change that to no. And then all of that data changes. Oh, and you'll notice actually one of the customers dropped off there because it doesn't have any unpaid invoices. So one of the 5 customers actually has been dropped off the pivot table. Okay, so let's look at this section here now. If we were to change one of these values, so let's have a look at one because we're looking at unpaid. If we just change the value of this invoice to be, let's vastly change it to £800. If we go to here and refresh, then our values change. If I can just change this one to be £1,000, and we click on here and refresh, and our values are changing again. You can see that. So you come to here to refresh your data if you wanted to, or even you can click in here and you can change the source of the data. So if you've added more columns, you can come in here and kind of added more rows rather. You can change the source of the data as well in here. And if we go to this design section here, we've got options of changing the look and feel. We can say we want banded columns or banded rows, or we can take off headers and add totals and subtotals and grand total, all that sort of thing. Okay, let's look at another example. Let us think about this invoice date column. So maybe I want to do a pivot table based on the invoice date rather than the customer. So I'm going to go to insert pivot table. Yes, that's the right data range. I'm going to put it in a new worksheet. So we'll click OK, and automatically Excel creates me a new worksheet. In this case, it's called sheet 2. And we're going to use the invoice date. Now, I've selected invoice date. Excel knows it's a date, and it automatically adds this little show hide option here. So I've got this little plus. So it rolls everything up into months to allow you a little bit more kind of summary options, if you like. So if I say, okay, yes, that's fine. In that, I want to analyze data by the invoice date, so that's exactly kind of where I want to begin. If I click on amount, that goes into my values column. There's my amount. So in September, I build that amount, October and November. And then I can click on this little breakdown here, and it will give me more granular information per day within that month. So that's quite helpful. That's great. Excel generally tries to be as helpful as it can be, and when it gets it right, it's excellent. But now we've got this grouping. In this analysis section, we've now got extra options with regards to grouping, so we can ungroup, or we've got, now that we've got kind of, now that this section does have grouping, this grouping area becomes available to allow us to be a little bit more kind of selective and granular when it comes to our grouping. Now let's look at another set of data. So I'm going to go to this set of data, which has got, it's got quarter 1 and quarter 2. So we've got September to November and December to February data here. And I want to kind of see quarter one and quarter two. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of that. So I'm going to create a new pivot table. And put it in a new worksheet. And what I want to do is I want to get the customer and I want to get the amounts per quarter. Now, because my data has duplicate column headers, as you can see, in my pivot table, I now have the first set of column headers, but then I've got invoice 2, invoice date 2, because Excel doesn't know what else to do. It can't offer you column headers with the same name, so it's got to somehow differentiate them, and what it does is it adds numbers. So that's kind of fine. So if I just do in amount and in amount 2, I know that amount is in quarter 1 and I know that amount 2 is in quarter 2. However, looking at this set of data, that doesn't really help me. So if I go back to here and I put in what I removed a second ago, if I come back here now, when we were using the refresh button before, when we changed values, we clicked refresh and it just refreshed the data. In this case, when we refresh this, that amount and amount 2 column won't exist anymore because we have renamed them to be quarter 1 and quarter 2 amount. So when I click refresh, they will disappear, which is fine. All it means is we need to then reselect them. And now we've got something that has a little bit more meaning. Some are quarter 1 amount, some are quarter 2 amount, and there's our values. I think that's the end of this tutorial on pivot tables. I hope it was helpful. There was something new, something that I was able to teach you. As always, any comments or questions, please leave them and I will reply. Thanks a lot for your time. See you next time.